You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
UFC Fight Night Kansas City just wrapped, and I'm going to go through all the fights, talk about my picks, talk about what happened, what frustrated me, and mostly rant probably about this card, honestly. So starting off at the bottom, Jocelyn Edwards versus Chelsea Chandler. I picked Jocelyn Edwards to get the win within the distance, and she did just that, getting the knockout against the fence in the first round. Very good performance by Jocelyn Edwards. Chelsea Chandler just not very high on her, honestly. She looked trimmed up in that fight. Looked like she came in really good shape, but couldn't really get anything going against Jocelyn Edwards, who's just a much better striker. Had power on the feet, dropped her, got her out of there, TKO. So great performance by Jocelyn Edwards. Moving on, Timmy Kwamba versus Roberto Romero. I picked Romero to get this one done. I thought his forward pressure and aggression would be too much for Timmy Kwamba, who can at times be a little hesitant to throw, a little bit too timid. But in this fight, he was landing good strikes. Started to piece up Roberto Romero in the second round. I think he landed a head kick or a flying knee, dropped him, and ref stepped in. I thought it was a little premature. Maybe it wasn't. I know people were arguing whether it was or wasn't, but you got to give these guys a chance, you know. And maybe I'm being a little bit biased because my pick got knocked out, but I felt like he was working to get back up. And the ref stepped in, but you know, it is what it is. He did grab the ref's leg, but you know, in the heat of the moment, he's just grabbing for anything to survive. Hopped right back up, but can't win them all, I guess. Moving on, Jacqueline Amorim versus Polyana Viana. I picked Jacqueline Amorim to win by, I think it was submission or decision, and she gets the submission in round 2. Pretty much dominated the fight with her grappling. Was on top the entire first round, looking for submissions, landed some strikes in the second round, eventually got the rear naked choke. So really good performance by her. Very high level jiu-jitsu. And Polyana Viana, I don't know where she goes from here. That's a lot of losses on her end. I don't think she's really taken her career that seriously, considering she's, you know, fighting once a year at this point, the last 3 years on a 3-fight losing streak, 32 years old, probably going to get cut or retire. So it is what it is. But Amorim, you know, if she continues to improve on her striking and her cardio, because that was a concern in the Sam Hughes fight, I think she can be a force in that division. Malcolm Wellmaker took on Cameron Simon. I had Malcolm Wellmaker to win. I thought that Cameron Simon kind of lunges forward in his combinations. I thought Malcolm Wellmaker would be able to get the check hook counter knockout, and that's what he got. So very good performance. Cameron Simon lunging in, hand down. Malcolm Wellmaker with the right hook knocks him down, puts him out cold. So great performance by Malcolm Wellmaker. Good dude. Just doing my research on him. You know, works like a blue collar welding job throughout the day. Only has time to work out at night. So dude's hustling, getting after it, making his dreams come true. Honestly, couldn't have a better debut in the UFC. With a first-round knockout against a guy in Cameron Simon, who's also a young up-and-comer with a lot more experience in the UFC. So brings him to 9-0. Very impressive performance. Dude's got a bright future, I think. So Damon Blackshear versus Alatang Lee. Damon Blackshear, I was concerned in this one. He was starting to get kind of pushed against the fence in the later rounds. Alatang Lee was having a lot of success with his boxing, but Damon Blackshear able to kind of squeak this one out by decision. And not much more to say other than that. I thought he'd have more success considering his length, his reach advantage. I thought he'd be a little bit more of the technical striker, maybe mixing his takedowns just to get some breathing room or work his submission game. But this was a primarily a striking fight, and I think he barely got it done. So I don't think Alatang Lee's that great. So the fact that he didn't kind of run through him or make it very dominant is kind of concerning for me on, I guess, considering how high on Damon Blackshear I was. But, you know, a win's a win. Can't look fantastic in all your fights. So we'll get to the main event in a second. Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. I picked Wellmaker. I said that I picked Blackshear. I picked John Castaneda in this one. I thought he was going to be able to mix it up a little bit better than Chris Gutierrez, who just taps with leg kicks. Tippy tap, feint spinning wheel kick, feint to strike, throw a leg kick. Very boring fighter. I'm kind of sick of Chris Gutierrez. I'm tired of him winning. John Castaneda was doing well in the first round. Got the takedown. All I was saying was like, dude, like stop trying to pass guard. Just, it was pretty evens on the feet. Stay in half guard, stay in full guard, land some strikes, win the round. Pops back up to his feet for whatever reason. Gets dropped immediately. Gets dropped by Chris Gutierrez, who barely throws punches, loses the round. Next round, Chris Gutierrez wins that round. Third round, John Castaneda wins. And then at the end of the fight, he's shocked that he lost the decision. And it's like, dude, like stop making low IQ moves and low IQ decisions in your fights and then being upset or shocked that you lose the fight. I'm over it. Stop being an idiot. Stop being an idiot. Moving on. Evan Elder versus Gage Young. Evan Elder is the real deal. That dude, otherworldly cardio, and that's what I was thinking going into this one. I picked him against Gage Young. I was like, this dude throws with so much volume and so much heat and never gets tired. Always moving, always blasting kicks, always throwing, 2 or 3 piece combinations, not just pot shotting. Tough, can wrestle, can box. Like, the dude is very good. He's only 28 years old, and that's kind of what he did this entire fight. He's throwing, left hands, right body kicks, left hands to set up his high kicks. All around just beating up Gage Young to the body with his kicks, beating up his legs. Just looked really good. And Gage Young, absolute dog. My wife was saying, she was like, this dude's made out of, like, steel. Like, he's not even reacting to these shots. Like, he's just getting hit across the arms and the chest with baseball bats, essentially, and just kept walking forward. So, I don't think Gage Young, I don't think his stock drops at all, He was in training camp, but wasn't training specifically for this fight. Neither was Evan Elder, but he still looked really good. He's only 24 years old. And I think the UFC will give him another shot, and not against an absolute stud like Evan Elder. So, Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick. This fight was awesome. Matt Schnell, digging deep to get the win in this one. Very impressive performance here. I mean, I was concerned at the beginning. He was just getting taken down by Jimmy Flick. But it seemed like Jimmy Flick started to gas towards the end. He was able to stay on top when they're on the bottom to land strikes and ended up getting the decision, winning 2 of the 3 rounds, I think it was. That's how I scored it. So very gritty performance by Matt Schnell. Granted, it's Jimmy Flick, who's not the most powerful guy in the world, but his chin's holding up. His chin was holding up in the last fight against Cody Durden before he just dove into a ninja choke. But really good to see Matt Schnell get that win. I'm a big fan of the dude. He's always in super exciting fights. If you haven't seen his Sumaderji fight, watch that one. But dude's a dog, down to fight, goes out on a shield, and I respect the hell out of that, and I'm glad that he got a win, especially considering he was thinking about retiring after his last loss to Cody Durden. So glad that he's back. Ikram Aliskerov versus Andre Muniz. I remember when Andre Muniz came into the UFC and broke Jacare's arm. And I thought he was the next coming of Jacare in the UFC. I thought this dude was going to be a world beater, and he's not. He's just kind of a softie. Like his last few performances, like Jung Young Park got that win, but that's whatever. Brendan Allen got choked out. Paul Craig kind of gave up on the ground. Ikram Aliskerov landed a left hook. I think it hit him in the temple, just wobbled him. He fell back, and Ikram pounded him out, but. Maybe Ikram's got just next level power, but I feel like he's got power, but I also just feel like Andre Muniz ain't about that life, He just isn't who we thought he was. I didn't pick him in this fight for that reason. I thought that he would not be able to get Ikram down to the ground. If Chimaev can't get him to the ground, you ain't getting him to the ground, and I thought Ikram was just next level in terms of striking. I know Muniz has some good kicks, but I thought Ikram would get him out of there. I don't know if I said this, but I bet on Ikram by first round KO, and that's what I got. So very good performance of him. Way to bounce back from his loss to Robert Whittaker last time out. So Randy Brown versus Nicholas Dalby. Now this fight was crazy. Nicholas Dalby is an absolute dog. 40-year-old Nicholas Dalby in there taking on this dude Randy Brown, who's just a monster for the division. Gets his nose snapped, Mike Perry-esque, if you know what I'm talking about. Bites down on his mouthpiece and just gets after it, keeps going after him, eventually drops Randy Brown after that in the first round. Kind of just jumps on him. I wish he would have been a little bit more tactical about it and looked to land shots to get him out of there, but I think he won the first round even after getting hurt, getting his nose broken, dropped Randy Brown. Got on top, landed some strikes. The second round, he's getting rocked. But again, dude's just going after him in the pocket and gets face plant knocked out by Randy Brown. But all the respect to Nicholas Dalby, like such a savage performance. And Randy Brown is, I mean, I wish this Randy Brown would have showed up in his last fight against Brian Battle, because I picked him against Brian Battle, and this wasn't the Randy Brown that showed up that night. This Randy Brown was very good, you know, still kind of chinny, but just he's got such good jab and striking on the back foot or going forward, manages distance well, very accurate. It's got tons of power. Dude's good, you know. You know, he's just been so kind of 50-50 in his career. Whenever he gets a little bit of momentum, he seems to hit a roadblock, and that's just so unfortunate because, you know, ran into JDM, no shame in that. Lost to Vicente Luque. Like, I can excuse those. I can't excuse the Brian Battle loss, which I think he still could have won. He lost it by split, but anyways, good performance on his end. Curious to see who they match him up with against next. Abus Magomedov versus Michel Pereira. Now, this was probably the most frustrating thing I've ever seen in my entire life, was Michel Pereira. Just everything that got you to the show, being wild, explosive, fun, entertaining, worthy of watching, worthy of paying money for, like, that was just out the window for this fight. He just kind of plodded around. I saw him throw a few like really weird hooks at the beginning, and I was like, that doesn't look like Pereira. Like, we might be in for an absolute disaster in this one, and that's what we were in for. It's almost as like he waited to the last 3 minutes of the fight because he knew he only had 3 minutes of cardio. Whereas the whole rest of the fight, he's getting, you know, kind of pieced up by Abus Magomedov, who rocked him a few times, definitely won the first and second round, and then he kind of turned it on in the third, but then it was just like, I don't know, this is a shell of Michel Pereira. And I know the dude looks like he's 45 years old, but he's 31 years old, and he's looked really good in the UFC. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if he's throwing the fights. I don't know if the Kansas City mob got in his ear beforehand and said, hey, bud, you know, you're going to drop this fight or we're going to break your knees. Like, it was just absurd how bad he looked in this fight. And after that fight and the last fight against Anthony Hernandez, I don't know if I can pick the guy again. It's just going to depend on the matchup. But absolutely disgusted by his performance. And Abus Magomedov, I don't think he's that great either. And he just made you look like an amateur in there. David Onama versus Giga Chikadze. Picked David Onama. I thought he'd be able to mix up a little bit better than Giga Chikadze. He's been a little bit more active, younger. And that's essentially what he did. Started to get his takedowns later in the fight to win a decision. You know, Giga Chikadze was having some success on the feet like he normally does. He's just too one-dimensional. He's been out of the game too long. He's 36 years old. He's pretty easy to game plan against. If you can kind of deal with his striking and time your takedowns, you can usually probably get a win against him. And that's what David Onama did in front of his hometown crowd, or I guess adopted hometown in Kansas City. Ming Yang Zhang versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. I went with Ming Yang Zhang by first round KO, and Ming Yang Zhang delivered. Absolutely shocked that Anthony Smith crawled up into a ball and gave up, but it happened once again in his retirement fights. And then he proceeded to flip off somebody in the crowd for whatever reason. Still don't know what happened. They put a spotlight. Like, what arenas have spotlights? That's what I want to know. It's the first time I've ever seen that. They put a spotlight on some random dude in the crowd, and he's like, what'd I do? But anyways, Ming Yang Zhang landing elbows, stepping elbows, hurting Anthony Smith. He curls up in a ball on the ground and gets TKO'd, because that's what he does. That's what he's done in a lot of his most recent fights. And then he gets a cringy post-fight retirement talk, speech, and then a 2 to 3 minute send-off video. Like, Stipe didn't even get this. You know what I mean? It's so cringy. It's so frustrating. And I couldn't wait for it to be over. Ian Machado Gary takes on Carlos Prates. Now, Ian Gary did well in this fight on short notice. You know, it was the standard Ian Gary. Bounce around, lateral movement, throw kicks, you know, throw decent combinations, manage the distance well. I just feel like he's afraid to get into an actual fight and engage. And, you know, But Carlos Prates looked awful. You know, he looks like a guy who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day and drinks whiskey in training camp. That's what he looked like. Didn't get anything going until maybe the 4th round. They said that Ian Gary landed more punches than he threw. I think it was going into the 4th round. I asked my wife at one point, I'm like, is this dude's left hand broken? Like, he is doing nothing but throwing a right jab and maybe throwing a kick. And I understand that Gary's blasting head kicks to keep his left arm pinned to his head. But it's like, dude, at some point, you got to take a chance. You're down 2 rounds, now 3 rounds, now 4 rounds. Like, you got to get in there and throw something and try to take this guy's lights out. And by the time he could do that, it was, you know, the 5th round, middle of the 5th round. And he's running out of time. He's running out of gas. And he had Ian Gary, like, crawling on the ground away from him to the cage. Like, the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. It's like something like straight out of an Anthony Smith fight. And Carlos Prates just like land 3 good ground and pound shots, and the ref's gonna step in because this dude is dead. Like, he is exhausted, he is hurt, he's bloodied up now, and it just didn't happen. And you know, it was a kind of an entertaining fight, but it really wasn't. You know, Ian Gary just kind of, you know, he throws good strikes at range, but for the most part, I feel like, I mean, some people might say it's good movement, good footwork, but I think he's scared to fight. I think that he can't really take a shot, and I think he's scared to death to go toe to toe with somebody like Carlos Prates. So he kind of had to just bounce around the entire time. And maybe I'm salty because I picked Carlos Prates to win, and I am salty because he looked awful. But I, for one, am not dying to see Ian Gary fight top-tier competition anytime soon. And I know that's all that we're going to hear about, especially with his pre-fight talk about should have got a title shot coming off of a loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov and deserves a title shot now that he stepped up on short notice and beat Carlos Prates. And it's like, dude, Carlos Prates was like, I know he wasn't top 5, maybe he was top 10, but you're on a 1-fight winning streak right now and doesn't deserve a title shot. So if I have to spend the next 6 months listening to this guy campaign for a title shot and sit out waiting for it and showing up to the JDM Bilal fight so that they can pan to him in the audience, and, you know, I'm not looking forward to that. But yeah, other than that, you know, not a bad card. A lot of finishes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not a lot of 5, 6, 7 finishes. I guess so. 50% of the time was finishes. But I went, what did I go? 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 4-2, 5-2. 6-2, 7-2, 7-3, 7-4, 8-4, 9-4. I went 9-5 on this card, so not my best. No 10-2 like last week, but tried to go for a few dogs, didn't pan out. Some of my guys didn't show up. Prates, Michel Pereira just didn't look like themselves heading into this fight, and it is what it is. But we'll be back next week for Corey Sandhagen versus Davison Figueiredo. We're going up the street from Kansas City to Des Moines, Iowa. Another packed stadium, which should be fun. I'm getting sick of the Apex lame cards with no aura or atmosphere. So I'll see you guys next week, and appreciate you tuning in. Thanks.